Witness the fall, oh, tremble before the swarm. In the radiant splendor of Mount Celestia, amidst the symphonic breath of the seraphic choirs and the glow of virtues rendered into angelic form, there once soared a being of unutterable beauty and terrible grace. Triel, an archon of purity, a champion of celestial logic and perfection incarnated, a true paragon of limitless potential. However, even with the perfection he held, Triel was not content. Some say that a dark presence whispered within his mind spoke of perfection, pushing him to believe that what he had was not enough, that it was a prison. And all the while they whispered as shadows behind the stars, and Triel listened. For in his mirror sheen of ego, he saw within his future a servant of heaven no longer, but a god in waiting, and for this he was not content. The archons sang praises of balance and patience. Triel sang louder, songs of dominion, of radiant conquest, of thrones built from ideals, shattered and reforged within the crucible of despicable malice. And so, within wings of ambition and eyes glazed by self-worship, Triel soared higher than Mount Celestia itself allowed. It was not a fall that came next, but an ejection from his brothers and sisters of the upper planes, a casting, a banishment that made the mountains weep and the stars close their eyes in sorrow. But as he plummeted through the plains of existence, he laughed, as this was just the start of his tale and of his ambitions. Triel was dead. Baalzebul was born. As many scribes are aware, the Nine Hells are not a place for mercy. And yet, Asmodeus, Lord of Nessus, did not smite this fallen angel on sight. Perhaps it was sentiment. Perhaps it was admiration. Or perhaps, just perhaps, Asmodeus saw in Baalzebul a mirror, a younger devil, a rival he might someday need. And so Baalzebul was welcomed as a noble of the Batezu. In his first breath in hell, he began to manipulate. His second breath birthed lies. His third, an oath to someday rule it all. And oh, how the heavens must have shuddered. Through deceit clad in splendor, Baalzebul rose. He charmed and shattered rivals. He cut his way into the seventh, overthrew its forgotten master. Yes, forgotten, for Baalzebul tore even the name from the stones, the memories, the very essence of this lord from the infernal record. In this, he achieved the unthinkable, historicide. He erased a devil from hell itself. In time, he would rule not just the seventh, but Malbolge, the sixth, by placing his creature Moloch upon its throne. 2 layers under one mind. Baalzebul, the bejeweled archfiend, the Lord of Lies, the Lord of the seventh and Shadow Sovereign of the sixth, basked in glory unequaled by his peers, except one Asmodeus. He sired the Hyperoba swarm, insectile fiends bred from the writhing flesh of lemurs. They buzzed in tides, their wings spelling doom, their proboscises injecting falsehood into the minds of his devil peers. Some said Baalzebul was second only to Asmodeus. Baalzebul said otherwise. He dared. By the 9, oh, how he dared. None know precisely how Baalzebul reached for the ruby throne. Some say it was a whispering campaign, a vast network of lies spun so artfully that Asmodeus himself doubted his reality. Others claim it was a ritual drawn from the void between planes, powered by the lies of 10,000 kingdoms. A few simply believe he declared war in a voice so proud it cracked the infernal iron of the towers of Nessus themselves. Whatever the truth, the reckoning came. The great rebellion of hell. The Archdevils split. Baalzebul stood with the schemers, the would-be usurpers, Zariel, Belial, Moloch, and more. Against him Mephistopheles, Mammon, Geryon, and Dispata, and above them all, Asmodeus, who let them play their games until they drew too close to victory. And then the hammer fell, and the games were over, for Asmodeus was always one step ahead. And for it, the Lord of Lies fell from his stature. a punishment most foul. Oh yes, a punishment. For his treachery, Baalzebul was cast down, not in position, for he retained his dominion over the seventh, but in his form. His body became grotesque, swollen with corruption, dripping with slime and his self-loathing. He became the Lord of Flies, the slug Archdevil, the Lord of Lies in both his name and now in his flesh. His court became a hive, his voice a choking buzz. The golden prince of perfection became a bloated, grotesque caricature of his own ambitions. A little depressing, but it was unfortunately his own doing. Yet, as all tyrants and evil often do, they rise again. Still he rules, the seventh layer, and still he plots. And in every whisper of treason, in every buzzing secret traded in the corridors of damnation, in the lies spoken throughout the material plane, his influence is felt. Do not mistake ugliness for weakness. Baalzebul's mind is as sharp as ever. His plots span centuries. His clergy speak tales. O Lord of Flies, Lord of Lies, Baalzebul, with your sly skill, your dark power, you are the master of my soul. This gives references to the power he still holds within the material, where he is revered with awe for his cunning. I was cast from heaven for perfection. I was punished in hell for greatness. What then am I to become when I rise again? For the gods? They do not understand that one day they will perish. For flies eat decayed gods, and lies breed a second coming of a manifested state. Through sufficient penance and grace, even the lowliest can redeem themselves. Am I not a living testament to that fact? Maladomini was once a bustling realm of vibrant cities and a panoply of roads, gardens, and bridges. It was the center of the hell's bureaucracy, where every edict, law, and order was dutifully copied and filed away. With each passing year, the devils would add more fortresses and archives to Maladomini to house all their records. Then came the single greatest act of treachery in the annals of the Nine Hells. At the time, the Archdevil Baalzebul was so powerful that he ruled 2 layers of the Hells, Maladomini and Malbolga. He conspired to topple Asmodeus and replace him, which in itself was not a crime. But in order to work his plans, he knowingly altered documents that passed into his care with the intent of confounding the apparatus of the bureaucracy. Before his scheme could come to fruition, he was caught and subjected to the most bizarre of punishments. In that time, long past, Baalzebul believed that he could cast Asmodeus as incompetent and amass a force to replace him before Asmodeus's allies could act. But his calculations failed to take into account the unpredictability of the blood, war. A sudden offensive from the abyss struck Avernus just as Baalzebul was about to put his plan in motion. Baalzebul directed most of his shield legions to stay out of the fight, instead of helping to hold the line against the demons, so that he could use them in staging his coup. The absence of those legions, however, enabled the horde to push close to the doorstep of Dis. Baalzebul was forced to abandon his plans, realizing that the 9 Hells would be of little use to him if it was overrun with demons, and ultimately he united with other archdevils to turn back the invasion. But when an investigation of the events uncovered his treachery, Baalzebul didn't submit to punishment, and Maladomini was racked with fighting as the other lords of the 9 took to the field against the conspirator. The resulting devastation left much of the lair in ruins. After Baalzebul was overwhelmed and defeated, Asmodeus stripped him of his rulership of Malbolga, but left him in charge of Maladomini, albeit with a new set of duties. Asmodeus knew that Baalzebul's superior intellect and propensity for lying would make him the ideal representative of the bureaucracy of the Hells in the worlds of mortals. So, to ensure his loyalty while taking advantage of his talents, Asmodeus enacted 2 laws concerning him. First, whenever Baalzebul lied to a devil, he would transform into a slug-like creature, hideous to all who beheld him, for 1 year. This penalty was retroactive, covering several millennia of deceptions and untruths, and only recently has Baalzebul worked off all those transgressions and been returned to his former human-like form. Until that time, he has not told a lie to another devil, and his continued honesty is motivated by his desire to keep his current appearance. The room was indulgent, as always. A slow-burning fire pit crackled behind her throne of polished infernal iron, where Mizora lounged with smug satisfaction written all over her grin. The scent of crushed myrrh and spoiled wine mingled with the distant, rhythmic scream of a contract-broken soul echoing somewhere deep within the vaults of her estate. Her succubi circled like planets around her, gilded, perfumed, and wicked to the core. Tonight's conversation had drifted from mortal temptations to the real games, infernal politics, eternal ambition, and the theatre of fiend downfalls. Mizora swirled her goblet, the soul ink inside catching firelight like blood caught mid-laugh. "Tell me, dears," she began, voice silken and slow, "who among the archdevils do you think has fallen harder than me from my original station?" Dazirine raised a finger, her voice teasing through the air. "Glacia, surely. Daughter of the boss of Asmodeus. I heard she is still trying to look surprised by her own power, that she was unwilling to accept her position. Surely she has fallen by now." Laughter rippled through the haze. "An entertaining guess," Mizora purred. But no, tonight's tale belongs to one who fell twice. Once from heaven, and once from Asmodeus's favor. And in between, she bared her teeth. He was worshipped, envied, terrifying, as an archon, and even when he first made his fall to the Nine, with a snap of her fingers, a grand illusion shimmered to life over the central table, a being of radiant gold and golden wings, standing atop the slopes of Celestia, his blade raised in divine triumph. "Ugh, how smug of him, Triel," Mizora said, with mock reverence. "A paragon of perfection. So beautiful, delightfully so. His power, I'm afraid to say we cannot even hope to comprehend. Well, perhaps. I could, darlings." The illusion darkened, corrupted, the wings blackened, the figure twisted, convulsing as a grotesque skin stretched over him, and his eyes bloomed into clusters of fly-like spheres. And like all who cannot bear to be anything less than perfection, he broke. Whether Asmodeus nudged him or merely waited is up for debate. Some say he appeared to Triel as a ruby lily in a dream. Others say Triel whispered his own damnation aloud, and Baator simply answered. She leaned back, claws drumming against the stone. One morning it was said, Triel woke up in hell. I'm not quite sure I believe that, darlings. Too ridiculous for me. I just believe he made his way here slowly, planning for his rise to grace within the Nine. Just buzzing in his head and slime on his breath. For he was then the fallen one. Baalzebul. The name hung in the room like smoke. He was made ruler of a layer almost immediately, Mizora said, voice now edged with something darker. Respect, or at least acknowledgement. Asmodeus cast down one of his own allies, one of the first devils, mind you, to give Baalzebul a throne. That didn't sit well with the old guard. Mephistopheles, Disparta. They hated him from the moment he slithered in. Jealous, Arlaith sneered. They always are. Of course, Mizora said. Baalzebul was brilliant. Vile, yes, but effective. He corrupted entire civilizations of humanoids, dismantled republics within the elemental planes, and built cults out of material plane cities. I did hear one malicious tale of him manipulating a whole kingdom with the promise of a cure, but in doing so, creating a plague that wiped out half of them with a new disease. A perfectible little plan, but oh, so vile. While the rest of us were gathering souls one mortal at a time, he was toppling empires with parasites and deceptions. A new illusion appeared. Mortal kingdoms. shining cities, each slowly twisting into monoliths of tyranny, their people chanting praises to invisible masters. He doesn't just tempt individuals as the other archdevils do, for he is too vile for that simplicity. He prefers to seduce their systems. He teaches nations to devour themselves from the inside, all while whispering that it's for their own good. But he lost it all, didn't he? Selksira murmured. Didn't Asmodeus punish him? Mizora raised a brow, her mind thinking of her own deceptions and failures. Oh yes, pride may rise swiftly in hell, but it always eventually earns a fall, at least within our kind, unfortunately. Another snap. The proud figure of Baalzebul was consumed in a roiling tide of filth and decay. When it cleared, a colossal, slug-like form remained, gleaming and grotesque, half buried in the waste of his own realm. He defied orders, failed one too many times, and Asmodeus, generous god that he is, recast him into that. She gestured at the monstrous shape, trapped in a layer of garbage and excrement, slime prints of the Ninth's wrath. Dazarine shuddered. Humiliating, mistress, don't you think? I couldn't imagine not being as beautiful as I am. A slight laughter at the edge of her sentence. Mizora nodded slowly. That's the point, darling. He found out that in hell, his power meant nothing without his strict obedience to the Lord of the Nine. Even our pride must serve a higher order. Otherwise, we are no better than those vile demons of the abyss. But, she continued, voice warming, Baalzebul's story doesn't end in the filth he created for himself. The slug illusion began to shift, whispering, eyes gleaming with hateful cunning. He's plotting, always plotting. Spies in Mephistopheles' court, agents in Dis. If he can't prove their treachery to Asmodeus, he'll invent it. He doesn't care if it's true. He only cares if it's useful for his increase in the hierarchy of hell. She traced a slow circle in the air. He wants revenge, yes, but more than that, he wants vindication. He wants to be beautiful again, terrifying again, and further still, feared as he once was. The devilish fire flickered across her grin. Ah, Baalzebul, the Slug Lord, the Fallen One, the Duke of Lies. Say his name with enough bravado and a proper sneer, and even the stone-faced devils of Maladomini might shiver with distaste or admiration. Depends which way the sulphur wind blows that day. It is I, Volothamp Gedarm. I encountered whisperings of him long before I ever ventured near the Nine Hells. They called him a master of charm, a bringer of rot, a tragic beauty twisted into a grotesque insect-like form. And so, naturally, I had to see for myself. Let me be clear. Baalzebul loathes his current form, his once radiant angelic visage now a glistening, fly-eyed monstrosity. He longs to return to his original self, but perhaps even more than that, he longs for revenge. A revenge served cold, cunning, and cruel. Particularly upon the architect of his disgrace, Asmodeus. Yes, dear reader, during that little kerfuffle known as the Reckoning, more on that in Chapter 7, Reckoning with the Lord of the Hells, a burning sensation. Baalzebul tried to rise too high, too fast, and was publicly struck down. He was not slain, no, that would have been merciful. Instead, he was remade into this bloated form, and yet Asmodeus let him keep his title. Why? To mock him. Every slither, every buzzing wingbeat is a reminder of his failure. But Baalzebul does not forget, nor forgive. His greatest rivalry is with Mephistopheles, the icy egotist of Carnia. The two loathe one another with exquisite passion. If the Archmage Devil were to slip on a patch of brimstone and fall screaming into the pit, Baalzebul would likely throw a feast, assuming his proboscis could manage a toast. He counts Belial among his few so-called allies, though I suspect that alliance is as solid as a handshake in Dis. Should Baalzebul require aid, he may summon Belial, and Belial may even come, but only if the favours owed are worth more than the help rendered. Devils do love their ledgers. Now then, let us speak of his mortal following. Unlike Glacier's fawning cults or Zariel's rage-drunk zealots, Baalzebul's servants are subtle, tricksters, silver-tongued sycophants with knives hidden behind smiles. Bugbears, of all creatures, seem particularly drawn to him, no doubt for his blend of brute menace and manipulative charm. Picture a bugbear orator swaying a mob with honeyed lies, then stabbing the loudest critic through the eye. That, dear reader, is a sermon in Baalzebul's name. His temples are a feast for the foul senses. Dimly lit chambers festooned with insectile motifs, beetles and flies worked into every tapestry and carving. Braziers belch putrid smoke, often fed not with incense but rotting meat. Worship must be conducted at night and behind closed doors. I attended one ceremony disguised as a cultist, brilliant performance, if I do say so myself. And suffice to say, the smell alone nearly ended my adventuring career. Clerics of Baalzebul are a theatrical bunch, bald, pierced, clad in blue and black. Female followers grow their hair into sweeping veils, like a dark parody of nobility. They are granted powers tied to trickery, war, evil, and diabolism itself, his favoured weapon. The morning star, of course, symbol of beauty twisted into cruelty. But don't let the pageantry fool you. Beneath every genuflection and whispered vow lies ambition. Every worshipper wants something: power, status, secrets, and Baalzebul promises it all, in exchange for obedience, blood, and perhaps a sliver of your soul. Now, dear reader, let us turn our gaze not to the loathsome form of Baalzebul, which I have already described in nauseating detail in Chapter 1, but to the foul tools and tactics he commands from the heart of Maladomini. I am speaking, of course, about his arsenal both arcane and accursed. It is whispered by the braver sort of plainer scavengers that Baalzebul's realm is littered with treasures beyond mortal reckoning. Magical artifacts, scrolls written in infernal ink, and cursed relics of ancient power lie hidden amidst crumbling ruins and collapsed palaces, once majestic fortresses now reduced to mausoleums of ambition. Were it not for the ever-watchful Cornigans that patrol these ruins, and the flesh-eating rot mist that tends to seep from the floor tiles, the bold might risk a search. One particular item of interest? The Book of Vile Darkness. A copy, one of only 6 known complete tomes, is said to have graced Baalzebul's personal collection for a time. This copy, however, is unique. Additional pages, scrawled in seeping black infernal calligraphy, are widely believed to be the Fallen One's own twisted contributions. What those pages contain? I shudder to imagine. Though, if anyone ever finds that edition, I would dearly like a peek. Though he is now more bloated than bold, do not mistake Baalzebul's current condition for weakness. No, he's a font of unholy magic and wretched invention. He commands light and fire as though they were playthings, twisting flames into cruel whips, bending brightness into illusions of purity, only to turn them against the faithful. He can create undead monstrosities with a snap of his fingers, enchant minds, vanish into the ether, and spy upon mortals and immortals alike with a bevy of divination spells. His mind is a vault, and few spells are barred from his grasp. More devastating are his signature powers. He may unleash symbols of pain and madness that sear through soul and sanity alike. His voice, when raised in anger, becomes an unholy word, a command that causes flesh to blister and minds to recoil. And when particularly displeased, he may cast a wish, twisting reality itself into something cruel and malformed. He also has the ability to summon fiends, Barbazus, Erinyas, Jalugons, pit fiends, But it is the Cornagons he calls upon most often. These horned, serpentine warriors, loyal to him beyond sense or reason, enforce his will with lash and fang. But these mighty spells are not his first answer to an insult. No, those are his polished daggers, drawn only after his rusty cleaver of horror fails. The flies. Oh, the flies. Permit me a moment to retch, metaphorically. Baalzebul's most infamous tactic, when provoked, is to belch forth clouds of flesh-eating flies, each the size of a copper coin and twice as bloodthirsty. These clouds can devour a battalion of mortals in moments. If pressed further, Baalzebul may cloak himself in the swarm, forming a buzzing, black cocoon of agony. The flies become his barrier, one that protects, blinds, and revolts his enemies in equal measure. Some brave souls have used magical winds to scatter the swarm, only to succumb to a more persistent danger. Yes, dear reader, even absent from his flies, Baalzebul is protected by a divine, or rather diabolic, stench. The air around him writhes with rot and mildew, thick enough to chew. Approach him without protection, and your stomach will mutiny before your sword arm ever lifts. He may be sluggish, but he is not without mobility. His adhesive, mucus-coated body allows him to cling to walls and ceilings like some infernal slug of doom. Worse still, he can burrow underground, emerging unexpectedly to drown foes in filth and deceit. Volo's helpful advice for aspiring devil hunters: if you must face Baalzebul, bring spells to clear the air, blades that never rust, and a strong nose. And under no circumstance should you eat anything found in his realm. Not even the berries. Especially not the berries. Volothamp's cautionary note: if a stranger offers you something too good to be true in a room that smells like spoiled meat and buzzing wings, run, or at least bring a morning star of your own. So beware, O seeker of secrets, when you light a candle to read forbidden texts, for where there is light, the flies gather. Baalzebul, the slug seraph, the lord of lies, the twice-damned Duke of the Seventh, does not sleep. He schemes, cocooned within layers of rot and his rituals to achieve the throne of Nessus, fed by the whispers of 1,000 false prophets and the dreams of the desperate who beg to be believed. Though his form may ooze and bloat, his will is a dagger wrapped in velvet, thrust with unerring precision. He is the patron of tyrants who weep at their own cruelty, the muse of diplomats whose smiles bleed kingdoms, and the god of rot who wraps it in perfume.